All right, so since you guys are doing a quiz today, I'm going to record this last half of the lesson, at least get you started. So the last couple days we read chapter 6, and you should have been collecting information specifically around the details and the sensory details of how the front is being described. You were given a lot more in regards to like gory details from this chapter than you were in previous chapters. And then you also collected some information that we could potentially put in a timeline. So when you're done with your quiz, get with a partner and hash out a quick timeline. Before then, I want you to make sure that you have some definitions that could be useful in the future. If you already know these words, good to go. But I want you to start looking at your timeline information. So get with a partner, hopefully someone is done with their quiz, and then just hash out a quick timeline of the incidents that happened in chapter 6. It doesn't have to be huge. There's probably 6 to 8 things that you could include on a timeline. There was quite a bit that took place. If you want, I've given you kind of a starting point from the very beginning of the chapter where it talks about how they arrived at the front 2 days earlier than expected. So if they were supposed to be there on a Monday, they got there on a Saturday, because remember, they were expecting the English-French to come over, but they just didn't know when. All right, so once you get your timeline together with your partner, the next thing you're going to do is I want you to take one point from your timeline, one incident that, and it can be any of them. There's no right or wrong in this one, but pick one that you think that you could find the most evidence on. But I want you to go through and select some evidence from the novel to describe how the men experienced the conditions on the front during that one particular incident that you highlighted on your timeline. So you're looking for maybe 2 to 3 pieces of evidence from the novel that discusses this. And then your final question for this part is to answer this question of what is the overall effect of conditions on the front on the men. So how does what's happening at the front, what they see, what they smell, what they emotionally feel, how they're, not only protecting themselves or trying to keep themselves alive, but others, and going over the front and doing the hand-to-hand combat versus dodging bombs and waiting out the bombing, and because they're waiting for the other guys to come over. So I want you to, it should be about a 2 to 3 sentence minimum explanation of the overall effect of being on the front on these men. And you can think emotionally, psychologically, physically. All right, I want you to go back to pages 56 to 58 if you're looking at Actively Learn. If you're reading in the book, it starts on page 119. Yeah, you're looking at 119 in the book to answer these questions. So 2 questions I want you to put in there. How does the picture Paul describes compare to his descriptions of conditions on the front? There's some very descriptive things here, so I want you to look at that. So it's 56 to 57 if you're using Actively Learn. It's page 119 if you're using the book. And then after you answer that question, the second one is, what's the effect of including this picture in the chapter? So why did the author include this information, and what does the overall effect as us for us, the reader, encounter while doing this? What does it do? What does it show? What does it enhance? It definitely doesn't take anything away. It's definitely not distracting anything. There is an enhancement here, but How so? What does it do, and what is its purpose? All right, in your orange spiral book, you're going to have to look at handout 14B. It should look like 2 boxes about descriptive and sensory details. And then you're going to go back and also use handout 12A. This is an article you should have already read to do other things. It's Fighting from the Trenches. So you're going to use handout 12A, Fighting from the Trenches, and your novel. So if you've been doing the detailed descriptive things, as I told you, this should be fairly easy. So you're going to look at 14B and be collecting evidence of descriptive and sensory details to see how the novel creates an impression of the effects of conditions on the front of the men. And then you're going to compare that to the other side, the novel's depiction with that of the informational text. So on one side of 14B, you're going to take the information, the evidence that you've been collecting as you've read, the sensory details of the effects of the conditions on the front. And then on the other side, you're going to use information from the text Fighting from the Trenches and put down the descriptive and sensory details of it as well. So complete 14B. And then your final assignment, this is kind of the big one because this is important for you to do not blow this one off. This is going to lead up to helping out with your final project at the end of this novel. So I want you to go back to pages 58 to 64 on Actively Learn. You're going to start with My Hands Grow Cold and My Flesh Keeps, and then you're going to go all the way to the end where it says 32 Men. If you're using the paperback book, I've got the pages listed there. But I want you to collect incidents and the corresponding emotional responses. So what happens and what's the emotional response, or in some cases, lack of response. So if something happens, what's the response? Emotionally, not necessarily physically. So we're not talking about people being blown up and heads blown off and all that. We're talking about the emotional, psychological effect of the men on the second company. So look through those pages, find things that took place, and what the emotional response was.